Good afternoon, friends. You are welcome to our tutorials today. Today we'll be discussing on anatomy and on the aspect known as the posterior triangle of the neck. Before we begin these tutorials, I will please encourage you to subscribe. Subscription is free. Let's talk about the introduction to the posterior triangle of the neck. In the neck, you are going to see some triangles. For example, you'll see the anterior triangle and you also see the posterior triangle. The posterior triangle is so named because it is posterior to the anterior triangle. It is a triangular landmark in the neck that is essential for locating some important structures in the neck. So there are some structures within this important landmark in the neck. Since we call it the posterior triangle of the neck, you can simply know that the shape of this structure is triangular. This landmark is triangular in shape. With that, we need to move to the aspect of the posterior triangle of the neck that we refer to as the parts of the posterior triangle of the neck. The posterior triangle of the neck has what we refer to as the anterior border. It has another aspect which we refer to as the posterior border. It has another aspect which we refer to as the base. It has another aspect which we refer to as the apex. It has the roof. It has the floor, and it also has some contents. So let's discuss about this aspect of the posterior triangle of the neck. First thing first, the anterior border of the posterior triangle of the neck can be referred to this structure here. This is a muscle which we refer to as the sternocleidomastoid muscle. SCM for short. Sternocleidomastoid muscle. The sternocleidomastoid muscle has two borders, the anterior border and the posterior border. The posterior border of the sternocleidomastoid muscle forms the anterior boundary of the posterior triangle of the neck. So what forms the anterior border or the anterior boundary of the posterior triangle of the neck? The anterior boundary is formed by the posterior border of the sternocleidomastoid muscle. With that, we move to the posterior border or the posterior boundary. This is the posterior border of the posterior triangle of the neck. It is formed by this muscle called the trapezius. The trapezius muscle has two borders. It has the posterior border and it has the anterior border. The posterior border of the posterior triangle of the neck is formed by the anterior border of the trapezius muscle. So, the anterior border of the trapezius muscle forms the posterior border of the posterior triangle of the neck. We go to the base of the posterior triangle of the neck. This is the base of the posterior triangle of the neck, and it is formed by the clavicle. This is what we refer to as the middle third of the clavicle. Notice the middle aspect. So the middle third of the clavicle forms the what? The base of the posterior triangle of the neck. Once you move upward, we are going to observe the apex. The apex is formed by the meeting point of the trapezius muscle and the sternocleidomastoid muscle right at the superior nuchal line. So the apex of the posterior triangle of the neck is formed by the superior nuchal line where the trapezius muscle and the sternocleidomastoid muscle meets. With that, we move to the roof of the posterior triangle of the neck. The roof of the posterior triangle of the neck is the part that is superficial. It is formed by the skin and also the investing layer of the deep cervical fascia. The deep cervical fascia has three layers: the investing layer of the deep cervical fascia, the pretracheal layer of the deep cervical fascia, and the prevertebral layer of the deep cervical fascia. The investing layer of the deep cervical fascia forms the roof of the posterior triangle of the neck. The floor of the posterior triangle of the neck is formed by the prevertebral layer of the deep cervical fascia and the muscles it encloses. I repeat that. The floor of the posterior triangle of the neck is formed by the prevertebral layer of the deep cervical fascia and the muscles they enclose. What are some of the muscles they enclose? The prevertebral layer of the deep cervical fascia encloses muscles like levator scapulae, the middle scalene muscle, and the posterior scalene muscle. With that, we move to the contents of the posterior triangle of the neck. The posterior triangle of the neck has so many contents, but I'll just list few for you. One of the contents is what we refer to as the spinal accessory nerve, cranial nerve 11. It is the content of the posterior triangle of the neck. Another content of the posterior triangle of the neck is the occipital artery, a branch of the external carotid artery. The third part of the subclavian artery is also a content of the posterior triangle of the neck. So these three contents of the posterior triangle of the neck: the spinal accessory nerve, cranial nerve 11, the occipital artery, and the subclavian artery, third part of the subclavian artery. The next point we are going to talk about is division of the posterior triangle of the neck. The posterior triangle of the neck has two divisions. It is divided into two. But the first thing you need to know is what divides the posterior triangle of the neck, into two. It is referred to as the posterior belly or the inferior belly of the omohyoid muscle. So I repeat that. What divides the posterior triangle of the neck into two? The inferior belly of the omohyoid muscle. Inferior belly of omohyoid muscle. So the inferior belly of the omohyoid muscle divides the posterior triangle into two, which are known as one, the subclavian triangle, and let me divide this into two, the subclavian triangle and the occipital triangle. So I repeat the point. The inferior belly of the omohyoid muscle divides the posterior triangle of the neck into two triangles. One, the occipital triangle located superiorly. Two, the subclavian triangle located inferiorly. Note, the occipital triangle is the larger triangle of these two, and the subclavian triangle is the smaller triangle. This triangle is called the occipital triangle because the occipital artery is located at the apex. And this triangle is called the subclavian triangle because the subclavian artery is located deep to it. The subclavian triangle is also referred to as the omoclavicular triangle. So you can say the posterior triangle of the neck is divided into occipital triangle and the omoclavicular triangle. You are correct, because the omoclavicular triangle is the same as the subclavian triangle. Now let's do a little recap of what we said today in these tutorials. We've been able to find out the parts of the posterior triangle of the neck. We know what forms the anterior border. We know what forms the posterior border. We know what forms the base. We know what forms the apex. We know what forms the roof. And we know what forms the floor. We've seen the content and we've seen the division of this triangle into the occipital triangle and the subclavian or the omoclavicular triangle. So this is a brief up of the posterior triangle of the neck. Once more, I will please encourage you to subscribe to our channels as subsequent videos will be posted. Thank you very much for watching this video.